What's happening, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of Phightin Words. Early on a Monday morning, Anthony SanFilippo is here. I'm Bob Wankel. Phillies take 2 out of 3 games from the Cincinnati Reds, 16 games over 500. And Anthony Zack Wheeler, who I said, I guess, about 7 days ago, or was it the Friday show when we last talked? I think that for my money, he's pushing now into the conversation as the best Phillies pitcher I've seen in the last 25 years. You think I'm crazy? Roy Halladay, I know, I get it. I don't know, man. Unbelievable stuff from just an all-time Phillies living legend right now in just a dominant blow-your-doors-off game. My son's first game. Took him to the game yesterday. 2-year-old RJ. Didn't really, I don't think, appreciate the Zack Wheeler show, but he did like the water ice and the soft pretzels and all the other stuff. So.
And that's all that matters, Bob. And that's all that absolutely matters. Now, look, and I don't think that you're crazy because of the longevity of Wheeler versus the time that Halladay was here. I think if you're saying overall, their overall career, I would still go Roy Halladay as a better pitcher than Zack Wheeler. But what Wheeler's doing is more sustained than what Halladay did here, and it's not even a question. And yesterday's performance may have been his best yet as a Philly. I was at the game on Roy Halladay retirement night when they retired his number, and Wheeler pitched that game. It was a complete game, 2-hit shutout. And that was the last time that I felt that he was as dominant as he was yesterday. And he was even better yesterday. I mean, just, those first couple innings, I'm sitting there, and I was telling you this before we went live, like I'm sitting there going, he has a chance to do something special today. Like his stuff looks that good. It's that electric. And then Hayes hits the home run, and it's like, all right, whatever. There goes the no-hitter. There goes a perfect game, actually. And then you don't expect him to get right back. I mean, you expect him to get back on the horse, but you don't expect him to get right back on it and say, all right, now nobody else. And that's exactly what he did. And it was just, and you could tell, the other thing I loved was in the 8th inning, at the end of the 8th inning, they show him walking off. They show him going down the dugout steps, doesn't walk over to Thompson, doesn't walk over to Cotham. He just keeps going down the steps into the tunnel. Like, I don't want to avoid these people because you know what? I'm freaking going back out there. 1-1 game, I don't care. Now it happens, Bryson Stott hits the home run, gives them the lead, which was perfect, and that really worked out well. But I don't think he was coming out of that game, even if it was 1-1. And he was going to pitch that 9th inning regardless, and it was his decision. Not the manager's call, not the pitching coach's call. It was Zack Wheeler's call, and he was taking that ball and finishing that game. Good on him for doing that.
9 innings, 1 hit, 1 run, no walks, 12 strikeouts. He's down to a 2.17 ERA. He's an all-star. We'll talk a little bit about that later. I want to ask you your thoughts on who will start the National League All-Star game and get into that and who should get it on merit and all of those things. But look, I will go back to this. We talk about, can the Phillies beat competitive teams? Can the Phillies, when you look at the National League playoff picture, who might be a part of it? Which teams may be a part of it? How do the Phillies stack up against them? And this week, 2 out of 3. Padres, you see them take down the Padres. You see them take down a pretty good Reds team that's been playing good ball lately. They face some decent arms. I know everybody kept talking about yesterday, this guy has a 13 ERA. Of course the Phillies want him. It's like one of the top prospects in the Reds system. Like he's a legit arm. And we saw a little bit of that yesterday as well. And Lodolo is very good. And Abbott's having one of the best seasons in the National League right now. And they're finding ways to win games. And it's not perfect. It's a little bit frustrating at times. The game Friday, if we were recording Saturday, we would have been talking about what I called a clown show on Friday. I thought that was a disastrous game, one of their worst losses of the year, actually. But then they just bounce back and go back to doing what they do, which is beat you with dominant starting pitching. And I don't want to dive all into the numbers this morning, but the one thing, man, and we've been banging this drum now for months, as have most people, but just go to Fangraphs and look at wins above replacement for starting staffs. The Phillies are at 12 wins above replacement as a starting staff. The next best team is Texas at 9. Like, it's a 3-game gap. Everyone else is like 7, 8, 6. Like, the disparity isn't that great once you get to the other 29 teams. It's literally 29 teams, and then it's the Phillies, who have been so leaps and bounds better than everyone else in terms of the rotation.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I did a story about this last week on Patterson, and you kind of gave me the idea for it, right? I went, yeah, thank you. And I went and looked at the best pitching seasons by WAR, according to Fangraphs WAR, by starting staffs over the last 50 years. And right now, the Phillies are on pace to be the second best in the last 50 years for a starting rotation, on pace. But what I did is I compared them. I took the top 10 seasons by Fangraphs WAR of the last 50 years, and then looked at where the pitchers were going into July 3rd, because that was the date that I wrote the story. And then I ranked them out by that based on where they were going in July 3rd. And this team is second best, behind only the 2011 Phillies. Now, the interesting thing that is, Bob, as good as they are, and as good as all these staffs were, there were four Atlanta Braves staffs in the 90s. By the way, that 90s Braves group, they led the majors in WAR for a decade.
No,
like every season. Like there was nobody, like they didn't get beat once. They were the best, and they were amongst the best of the last 50 years every season. It was unbelievable. But of the top 10, not one team won a World Series. None of them. So it's interesting. You sit there and say, well, yeah, starting pitching will get you there. Starting pitching will get you there.
Yeah.
And it can get you there. It absolutely can get you there. But it hasn't won. The 10 previous best seasons by WAR of starting rotations, those teams did not win a World Series. So
you're saying that the Phillies need to upgrade their offense at the trade deadline?
It's been my thing all along.
Breaking news.
It's been my thing all along. You could say they need bullpen, and they do. And we'll talk about that too, because there's a hot trade rumor out there. But at the same time, like it really comes down to how you hit in the end. And the pitching will get you there, can get you to the end, and you need that great pitching, of course. And we've been saying that all along. But you got to be better than what they've been offensively. And right now, there's just the red flags on the offense are a little bit concerning.
Well, one part of this starting rotation that in terms of wins above replacement has been phenomenal is Jesus Luzardo. If you look at qualified National League starting pitchers right now, it's Paul Skeens, it's Zach Wheeler, it's Logan Webb, it's Mackenzie Gore, and then it's Jesus Luzardo, even ahead of Christopher Sanchez. And I think that at this point, we'd all argue that Christopher Sanchez is having a better overall season than Jesus Luzardo. But Jesus Luzardo on Friday was a disaster again. And, you're staked a 3-0 lead at home against a really good arm in Abbott. And you're thinking, okay, this is packed house, 4th of July, getting this series started off on the right foot. And Jesus Luzardo goes out and is just bad. I mean, he was bad. And now you look up, it's July 7th as we talked this morning, and he has not made back-to-back quality starts. And I know that that's not the end-all be-all, but he has not made back-to-back quality starts since May 20th and May 25th. And over his last 7 starts, I have this in front of me here, Jesus Luzardo has a 9.49 ERA. He's thrown 30 and a third innings, so he's averaging just a shade over 4 innings per start. He's given up 48 hits in 30-plus innings with 16 walks.
I think his whip is like 2.1.
It is. It's 2.11. And, he struck out 38, and that plays, and that's great. But let me just state the obvious here. If you have Zach Wheeler pitching the way that he is, and you have Ranger Suarez and Christopher Sanchez pitching the way that they are, this is a problem of luxury here. I mean, if Jesus Luzardo is an every other start guy, you can withstand that in the grand scheme of things because those 3 guys up top are so phenomenal. But the idea here was that, wow, the Phillies are 4 deep. They're 5 deep. I think that we're reaching a point with him where it's not just, he's tipping pitches or, it's a simple fix. And the Phillies, they went all in and they were able to dive into the numbers and dive into the video and figure this out. Like it's more than that now. And my question to you is like, what's not like the level of concern, but like, what do you make of Jesus Luzardo?
So I'm going to throw it back at you first before I give you my take on it. So obviously we know about the 2 games, end of May, beginning of June, Milwaukee, Toronto. We've talked about it a ton. And that's when they figured out that he was tipping in those games. And they showed the video of it, what he's changed. He went to a bigger glove so he can hide the ball more. He's holding his glove closer to his chest so the guys on second base can't see the grip on the ball. Like there's a lot of things, and it's out there, and they did this. This is not an excuse thing that they did. They actually looked into it, and this was legit. Okay.
Yeah.
So since then, I guess he's made this 4 starts since that point. He has continued to struggle out of the stretch. He's fine when he's pitching out of the windup, but out of the stretch is where he continues to get hit. And he said after the game on Friday that he was uncomfortable, that he's still not comfortable with his new mechanics, so to speak, pitching out of the stretch. Do you buy that, Bob? I mean, because it's mid-season, he's doing something different that he's not done before, so he's probably got to think about it a little bit. It's not just a natural movement that he's, the way he's pitched his whole life, whatever kind of thing. Do you buy that as a reason to get torched pitching out of the stretch, or do you sit there and go, hey, you're a professional, you still got to be better than that?
Well, it's similar to what Rob Thompson was saying about Max Kepler. Like, if you think it's a problem, getting consistent at bats, then it's probably going to be a problem. And if you're Jesus Luzardo, whether or not it's real or not, I mean, if he thinks it's a problem, it's going to be. Sort of reminds me a little bit of Aaron Nola, where back a couple of years ago with the pitch clock implementation, it felt like he was the last pitcher in Major League Baseball to figure it out. And at some point, you're like, all right, it may be real, it may not be, but oh well, like it's time to hammer it out and get this fixed. Look, what I'm starting to see, because we're very October oriented, is a guy that's going to be converted to a reliever, and so much can change, because 6 weeks ago I would have said, no way in hell, this is like the best starting pitcher in the National League. You can't do that. And 6 weeks from now, we may have a totally different spin on this. But in this moment, I go, lefty, throwing 97, 98, probably can sit 98 if he's a one-inning guy. He's still striking out over a batter per inning, even at his worst. That's your guy. But that's not what the Phillies brought him here to do. They brought him here to be a part of this rotation. And look, Ranger Suarez is approaching a point where we can talk about, do you re-sign him? What do you do? That guy's going to get paid. If this thing continues over the next 3 months the way it has for Ranger Suarez, I don't think it's I don't think he's back here. So the Phillies do need Jesus Luzardo to not pitch to a 4.5 ERA and get torched every other start.
Yeah, no, there's no question. It's funny because I think as this year has progressed, at different times, we've thought about different lefty relievers or different lefty starters going into the pen as relievers, right? There was a time where we thought it was guaranteed to be Ranger. There was a time where we said, hey, maybe it's Christopher Sanchez. Now we're at the point where it's Luzardo. And, and as David Waitman put up, he said it as you were saying it. He typed it in there, Luzardo for Alvarado come October. And I think that right now that's probably the case. Now, again, there's 2.5 months of the season still to go. That can change over the course of the next 2.5 months. See what happens at the deadline. See how these guys keep pitching later in the season. Are there injuries? There's so many variables. So it's really kind of hard to really nail it down. But if you're going off of how they are performing at this very moment, you're right. Jesus Luzardo is the guy who would be the next lefty in the bullpen. He also has, I don't know if people recognize this, but he does have relief experience in the past. He was a reliever for a while with the A's when he was there. Now, the one thing I sit there and go, well, here's the thing, and you trust Suarez and Sanchez probably a little more than you do Luzardo, which is why you want to keep him in the rotation. But in that same vein, now are you comfortable with your 3 lefties out of your pen in a playoff series being Luzardo, who has not really been a reliever for a while, Strom, who is a battler, but he's not the same guy he was a year ago, and Tanner Banks, who's having a really nice year, but he's not really a high leverage guy. So are you comfortable with those 3 guys being the left-handed arms that are coming out of your bullpen as you're trying to win a World Series? And I think that's what Dave Dombrowski and the Phillies have to ask themselves as they approach the deadline.
I think the answer to that in a perfect world is no. But again, how much can you do? How much are you going to be able to do in the next 3 weeks as you try to improve this team, given the balance that you have to walk between we're all in versus we don't want to give up. We've been so disciplined in holding on to our prospects and making sure that we can circumvent that 5-6 year drought after these guys age out, which they are, and some of them are right before our eyes. And how do you thread the needle there? And if it's going to be a bat, then can you go get a righty arm out of the bullpen and the lefty arm? I kind of expect right now, if you ask me, do you think the Phillies are going to add another lefty to this bullpen before the deadline? I don't think they're going to. I don't. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. It may just be a scenario where they want to do other things and those things don't present themselves, and the left-handed upgrade is what's in front of them, and they feel like, well, we need to do something, so then that plays out. But if you said, look, you get 3 moves, rank them out in order of importance, I think that would be at the bottom of it for them right now in this moment.
Yeah, the only thing that I will put as a caveat to that, Bob, is this. Let's just say, and you don't want to predict an injury, but let's just say you do have somebody who gets knocked out of the rotation here, right? If that's the case, whether it's a left-hander, right-hander, doesn't matter, and you now need that third left-handed arm to be a starter, you have 0 left-handed relief depth in the system. Like there is nobody else. Like you have righties who you can sit there and squint and go, well, maybe if they get hot or whatever, they could be beneficial. But you don't have another lefty. And so that's the one thing I sit there and go, do you at least get somebody that's left-handed, even if it's somebody on the cheap, even if it's somebody who you're kind of stashing for a little bit, but that at least in case of emergency, you can call on at that time of year.
How bad would you like to have Hobie Milner right now?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, he's nasty, brother.
Yeah, he's nasty, brother. At least, but like, no, and when I say this, I'm talking like another Tanner Banks type.
Yeah.
Like last year, nobody talked about Tanner Banks' move like it was anything. But maybe if you go out and get a guy like that,
right?
You know, like at least so you have another live arm that from the left side. That's the only thing I could say. Maybe they still do that. But you're right; it is lower on the priority list.
Okay, so let's do the All-Star thing real quick, and then we can get into the problems and the issues.
Yeah.
Trey Turner, you know, it's funny. Like Trey Turner's having an awesome year, and I think an All-Star year. Do you think he got screwed? Like on a scale of 1 to 10, how screwed did Trey Turner?
I do. I think he's been more consistent than both Lindor and Ellie De La Cruz. I know Lindor gets in on a vote, so you can't do anything about that. I was surprised that they took De La Cruz instead of Turner. Maybe that's more of a who has more pizzazz.
Flash upside. He's having a good year. Does he have 17 home runs? I mean,
I'm not trying to take anything away from Ellie De La Cruz, but I think he's a more marketable player for Major League Baseball than Trey Turner is at this point. He's younger, he's exciting, he does a lot of things well. Trey Turner's been around. Yeah. I think that's probably why it went De La Cruz, but I do think Turner should have been on there. I think
weird evolution of Trey Turner. This is a guy 3 years ago in the World Baseball Classic that was basically Captain America, right? You're like, Trey Turner is that guy. He's one of the stars of baseball. They got a top 20 name in the sport. And now he's getting iced out in an all-star game where he's been arguably the best National League shortstop from an offensive perspective this season.
Yeah.
Weird. Very weird.
By the way,
very good team, no less.
By the way, did you see his defensive metrics lately?
Yes.
I knew he's been better this year than he was last year. That's visibly obvious with your eyes, right? But when you look at the actual numbers and you see that he is +7 outs above average, like that's pretty darn good. He was best in the National League in the month of June. Like, where did that come from, Bob? Like, I gotta give him credit.
Had a little hiccup on Saturday.
Yeah, but he made up for it. He made up for it on the next play.
Yeah, he did.
But I mean, seriously, in all honesty, like I look at that and go, I'm not sitting here telling you he's a good defensive shortstop now, but he's gone from being unusable there to being decent.
I actually think that he gets overlooked when you talk about this Phillies team. We obviously give so much credit to the starting rotation, but you have to have other things that work in your favor in order to be this far over 500 and playing this type of baseball. I mean, Phillies are on pace, if you want to get exact, to win 95.4 games. There's 6 teams since 1883 of the Phillies that have won that many baseball games. Like, this is, for all the anxiety and what's October look like in the moment, if you can kind of remove yourself from this team needs to finish it, there's a lot of pressure on them. One of the best seasons that this franchise has ever experienced. And there's a lot of things going wrong for it. This lineup has a lot of issues. The bullpen we talked about is obviously a disaster at times. So what's going right beyond the starting pitching? And Trey Turner is such a big part of it. If Trey Turner was not having this bounce back resurgent season, Phillies would not be in this spot. And I don't think that gets said enough. Like, I don't think that you and I don't think I've said this often on this show. I don't think that people in general are saying or talking about the impact that Trey Turner's had. And perhaps it's because it isn't coming in the form of a 30 home run season. There's not a ton, as you said, flash to it. You don't watch it and go, oh my, incredible. But I mean, he has been everything that the Phillies had hoped he would be when they signed him. This is what you paid for, and you're finally getting it. And it's a shame that it didn't materialize in an all-star game for him. But, maybe he gets it. Maybe things get weird over the next few days. Guys bail out. I don't even know if Trey Turner cares. He kind of strikes me as a guy that probably is like, well, that sucks. Oh, well, I'll just go on living my life now.
I do wonder, though, if he's the kind of guy who would use it as fuel a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think he's used what happened last year as a little bit of fuel for what he's doing
absolutely.
This year. So I wonder if this kind of just ramps that up even a little bit more, and he comes out and has a great second half, like even better second half, which is hard to imagine considering he had such a good first half. But I do think that that's a possibility. As far as the other quote unquote snubs, one I kind of understand. I just think it was kind of stupid on the other side. So Ranger Suarez, I think, should be an all-star. Probably doesn't get it because he missed the first month of the season. There's a lot of good pitchers in the National League. So when you're weighing it, saying, okay, this guy's been great, right? He's 1.99 ERA. He's had 11 out of his 12 starts have been fantastic. But he's only made 12 starts, missed a month of the season. Okay, I do think that he's going to be the guy that gets added because Chris Sale's not going to pitch in the All-Star game.
Right.
So I think Suarez is the guy that gets added. The one I'm a little bothered by more so is Sanchez. Now, here's the reason why. Sanchez should be an all-star. His stuff is, if you look at his numbers, they match up. They're better than a lot of people. He's not going to get added. And the reason he's not going to get added is because he's pitching Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
So he's not going to be able to pitch in the All-Star game. So they're not going to add somebody who's unavailable for the All-Star game, right? So it's almost like, wouldn't you have been better served giving him the All-Star nod, knowing that he's not going to pitch, and whoever got in, you can add, and then they get the All-Star recognition anyway. And so like that to me was where I think baseball had a big miss of the two Phillies pitchers. Like I'm okay with Suarez not getting it because I think he'll get added, but I'm not okay with Sanchez not getting it.
I also felt like of the two, I understand a world where Christopher Sanchez and Ranger Suarez don't both get in. It's a numbers thing. We all know this. Mm-hmm. I thought Christopher Sanchez got screwed, and I thought that he deserved to get in on merit, and it's unfortunate because, again, too, he's a pitcher in which I think he's one of the more overlooked guys in the entire sport, and this is the latest evidence of it. Like he's been undeniably a top 7 guy in the National League this year. You could just flip through all the different metrics. Like, how do you leave him out? And the level of consistency and how good he's been really recently here too. It's not like he got out to a hot start in April and then, is kind of being carried by that. He's gotten better as the season has progressed. He's pitching deeper into games. The command has come back. He's been sharper lately than he was in the start of the season. So, I'm not a huge, people talk about the Hall of Fame and they get real fired up about it. People get really angry and upset about all-star nominations and votes. And it doesn't move me the way it moves other people, but I was disappointed. I was disappointed that the team that is arguably the second, third best team in the National League has 2 guys going. It's interesting to me. I mean, it's really interesting.
David said he wouldn't be surprised if Wheeler bails because he pitches on Saturday. I'm going to tell you he's not going to bail because it's in his hometown. It's in Atlanta. So he's going to be there. Whether he pitches or not in the game, we'll see. But that would be his bullpen day, right? So he can get an inning out of him, I think. But I don't think he's going to bail because it's in his hometown. We do have 2 comments I want to get to, Bob, that are now trending toward the negative things that we want to talk about. So here's the first one, and I think this is the biggest one that people want to talk about. And this is from King Alfred's U.S. Descendant. It says, on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your concern level with Harper, not just for this season, but beyond?
Let's just answer the question. Right now, my concern level with Bryce Harper in 2025 is probably a 7. Beyond, maybe a little less, but I would acknowledge that he is a player that does seem to be on the downturn a little bit and can't stay healthy. Like, whether or not it's his fault at times, the fact of the matter is, like, go back and look at the recent run. He's hurt a lot, and he plays through a lot of that, but it seems to have an impact on him as well. One of the questions about the trade deadline and what will the Phillies do and what do they need and how far in do you go? Let's just pretend that there aren't only 7 teams out of it and that you could have what you wanted to. And there's just some perfect world where this player exists and you can trade Aiden Miller and Crawford and whoever else. Like, how in do you go when Bryce Harper looks the way that he does right now? Now, he just came back off of a prolonged absence, but he's 3 for 19. With 9 strikeouts, and he doesn't look like an impact player. He hasn't really looked like an impact player the way that we expect him to be all year. Does he knock off the rust and get going? And we go, oh, look, see, that's Bryce Harper. He's a robot. Maybe. I think the reality of it is that he'll be better than what we've seen, but I don't know that you're getting like the big moment Bryce Harper guy here this season.
See, I'm going to go the other side of that. I'm less concerned. And I know he was 3 for 19, but I'll tell you, it was a rougher weekend than it was against San Diego. He was better against San Diego. I mean, that 3 for 19 was originally 3 for 10. You get there and go, okay, 3 for 10, that's, 300, right? The first few at bat. He had a couple outs against the Padres where he hit the ball really hard.
But then the 3 hits were like dinks and dunks and,
Sure. I mean, you take those sometimes, right? Yeah, he didn't hit a home run, whatever. He had a really rough outing against Lodolo and yesterday was not great.
Lodolo is tough on the Phillies. And you think tough on lefties. He's actually not as tough on lefties this season as I would have expected.
Yeah.
When I looked at the numbers, I was like, actually, he's not that dominant against him, but whatever. Abbott, I get it. Lodolo, I get it. Yesterday, I'm like, all right, Bryce, like, here you go.
Yeah.
Young arm, righty, 5-6 games back now.
Yeah.
And
look, if this continues for the next couple of weeks, then I'll probably change my tune. But we've seen this with Bryce Harper.
We have.
Before.
It takes him a couple of weeks typically to get going when he comes back from something like this.
Yeah, it usually does, and so that's why I'm not as concerned. And the second reason I'm not as concerned is although this wrist thing has been a concern because it's happened last year and it's happening again this year, it's nothing structural, right? So it's inflammation, which means there's fluid buildup, which means it's probably a problem somewhere else in his arm and not really his wrist. So whenever they can figure out how to make that go away, I think Bryce Harper gets back to being Bryce Harper because it's not a structural problem with his wrist. It's more just something that is preventing him from getting the swings that he normally gets.
I know that there's no way you could possibly know this, and you, I guess, to some extent, just answered the way you feel about it. But is there any situation where like this goes on for a few weeks, he gets to August, and he goes, "I'm not the same guy. Never mind, I'm out again." And it's just like you think it's going to trend more towards like he figures it out and they're able to manage it and get the most out of him, as opposed to holy smokes, like.
Yeah, I do, but I also do think that they're going to be a little bit more careful with him. I think he's going to be a little bit more careful with himself, and he's maybe not going to try and push through it a couple times.
I thought it was telling, and I know he had just come back day 2, but the fact that he didn't play in the other game of the doubleheader, I'm like, okay, this is a little different for Bryce Harper.
Yeah, I think you're going to see him get an extra couple days off that maybe he normally wouldn't have had as you go through the dog days here in July and August. That way he could try and be himself for the last 3 weeks of the regular season and into the playoffs. So I do think you'll have a little bit of that where he maybe doesn't play as often, but I also don't think that he's going to be a shell of himself for the remainder of the season. And maybe I'm wrong. As far as the bullpen, we have a couple of comments here. One from Caleb C. Is pitching coach watching us? Is Caleb watching the show? Thoughts on?
I don't know that he'd be saying "wishing we kept off."
Wishing we kept Hoffman.
Or maybe he is. Maybe he is saying that.
That's one. He forgot to use his burner account. And then secondly, Phillies and Eagles throwbacks: Dennis Santana or David Bednar? Question mark. That was the hot rumor. Coming out of Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Actually, it was originally reported by a radio guy out there.
Andrew Filipponi, right?
Yeah, Filipponi. Yeah. And then Pittsburgh Post-Gazette had a more detailed story about what the Pirates are looking to do at the deadline. And they reported that the Phillies are interested in both Dennis Santana and David Bednar, that they've been high on Santana for a long time, and more recently have come around on Bednar because of how well Bednar's pitched. Hasn't allowed an earned run since May. So where are you, I guess, on the bullpen? I mean, Romano, we've discussed ad nauseum. He's good at times and he's terrible at times. There's no in between with him.
I appreciate that the Phillies took Ranger Suarez out on Saturday at 80 pitches. That they felt like, look, there's some lingering things.
Yeah.
We went through this with him last year where he missed a month. He was never right when he came back. I have no problem playing a conservative with Ranger Suarez. I totally fine with it. The Phillies' track record of keeping their pitchers healthy speaks for itself. You get no second guessing out of me. That being said, 6th inning on Saturday, I texted you and I said, I'd rather see Ranger Suarez at 147 pitches than this guy throw a pitch in this inning, in this game right now. Talking about Jordan Romano. Jordan Romano evokes absolutely no trust from me. We talked about him last week. I acknowledge that this bullpen is very thin. He probably represents more upside than most of these guys. I think that you keep him. I don't think it's a DFA thing. I think you hope that he gets hot for a few weeks and figures it out like he did at the beginning of the season after the hiccups. But you cannot design your, we're going to go try to win a championship and say Jordan Romano is going to be an integral part of this. We're going to ask this guy to get outs in key situations or take down high leverage 7th, 8th, 9th innings. No, it can't happen. You can't go an entire 3 months, 86 games, whatever it's been, and say, well, I know he has a 7.2 ERA, but if you just take out the 9 games of the 35, you can't do that. You cannot have a guy who literally implodes 1 out of every 4 appearances be a key part of what you're doing in your bullpen.
1,000%. And look, if it was just 1 or 2 games, and then you could sit there and go, okay, if you just take those 1 or 2
no problem with that. Agree.
Right. And it's fine. But when it's 9 out of 35, it's like it happens too often, right? That's too often. 9 out of 35. 26 games, he's been good. 9, he's been god awful. So he could be part of your bullpen. He just can't be a reliable part of your bullpen. And so, you look at that, you look at the bullpen, and other than Kerkering, you have no reliable right-handed pitcher right now.
Yeah. And
so with that said, I'm all in on. I've said I think we were the first show, Bob. In all honesty, I don't want to pat ourselves on the back too much, but about a month and a half ago, I think we were the first show who said Dennis Santana would look really good in the Phillies uniform. He
would. Now let's talk about him. Let's talk about him a little bit. Okay, so on the plus side of this, you're talking about a 29-year-old. He has pretty good stuff. He's giving up 5.2 hits per 9 innings right now. His WHIP is 0.763. 38 innings pitched. His ERA plus is 3.02, Anthony. He's having an awesome year.
He doesn't strike anybody out. He's a soft contact guy.
Yes, he is. He's a soft contact guy. And you know me, I like guys that miss bats. And we had this conversation about Estevez last year in terms of a guy who's been around a little bit, having a career year. I can't take credit for this take. I heard Jack Fritz say it last week, and I tend to agree. This has immediate regression written all over it when he comes here. But for what he is, he would be great. How could you argue with the season that he's having? I just look at it. You're talking about a guy that's been around the block a little bit here. And he's just pitching so far above what he has pitched in the past.
Well, he was good. He was good for the Pirates last year.
He was. He was not good for the Yankees.
No,
he was horrible for the Yankees, and then didn't pitch much in 23 with the Mets. He struggled immensely in 22 with the Rangers. So, it's been a while since we've seen this level, but it's been a 2-year run. The question becomes it's not Pittsburgh, it's Philadelphia, where that is part, it's real. People don't want to acknowledge that, but going from Pittsburgh to Philly, it's just a different ball game. And I get
and He's the guy, if you suspended a couple games, who for taking a swipe at a fan because he didn't like being heckled.
Well, I'll fit right in with this team. It's perfect. Perfect. I mean, look, I don't know. I get the sense that whatever was said at the end of Friday's game was, I'll just say this. I tend to go like, come on, guys, like you can't be yelling at the fans. It's a horrible look. But I'm under the impression that was so far beyond.
Yeah, because apparently it was like the camera caught Castellanos, but apparently it was multiple guys said something back. So if multiple guys are doing it, it must have been bad.
It must have been something. And I don't mind. I don't mind guys sticking up for their teammate if it got to the point of absurdity. You blow Bryson, whatever. That's one where you're like, what are you guys talking about? But that probably was personal. So yeah. I mean, look, would I do it? Sure, I would do it because he's a competent arm and this team needs competent arms. Now, would I go crazy to bring him here? I don't know. Bednar, same thing. Like little older veteran guy had struggled. Really had struggled. Kind of looked like he went from being an elite level back end guy to like done, and now he's figured it out again.
Yeah.
That gives me some pause. Like these aren't perfect solutions, but they're interesting.
So the thing about Santana that really I like more than I think maybe what you're suggesting is this. I don't think you're bringing in him to be the same role that Estevez was. So like he's not your closer. You're bringing in Dennis Santana to make the middle relief better. Yeah. And in that case, I'm all on board because I think that even if he is a soft contact guy, you're bringing him in probably at times of a game where even if he gets beat, you're still going to have an opportunity, right? If he's preserving a lead and he gives up the tying run, okay, but you still have a chance. It's as opposed to being the guy at the back end who's coming in to save the game and then, they blow it. Now you're out of chances. You're out of opportunity. So I'm much better with a soft contact guy for the middle relief role than I am for the guy that you're going to in the 8th or 9th inning.
Yeah, that's fair. Do you think this is an either or is it like we want Santana and Bednar?
I think it's an either or, but because the reason I say that is if they go to get both, you're probably going to have to pay more. I mean, obviously you're going to have to pay more. That's a stupid statement, Anthony. But I mean, you're probably going to have to pay a lot more. Yeah. And the reason I say that is because they both have another year of control. So you're getting 2 relievers with a year and a half of control. You traded 2 decent pitching prospects for a free agent to be in Estevez last year. What are you going to have to trade for 2 guys with control? I think you got to give up too much.
It's interesting that you asked that question. I did a hit with Mike Gill yesterday on 97.5, and he had asked me, what do you think the Pirates would want? I said, I'm curious to know if you agree with me. I said, I don't want to dodge your question, but I said, I think that's impossible to answer because there's a lot of moving parts with the Pirates. Right now, you obviously have a Pittsburgh team that throws the ball pretty well. They have some interesting arms in that starting rotation. And so would a guy like Mick Abel be of interest to Pittsburgh? And I would say, like, on the surface, probably not. This is a team that desperately needs to add to its lineup and get some meaningful offensive pieces. But where I kind of land is, well, like if you look at Mitch Keller, I think that he's out of there, right? Maybe they bring in offense through a Keller trade, and then they would be interested in kind of filling out the rotation with a guy like Abel. So like, I don't know. Pittsburgh has so many different things that they could do that I think that though it's very blatantly obvious they need to upgrade offensively, that they could create enough gaps where they would be interested in arms as well.
I agree. I think every team is always interested in arms. Whether you need to upgrade your offense or not, I think teams are foolish to turn down a potential, rotation piece. Like there's value in. I mean, the Pirates found value in Bailey Falter, right? Yeah. And he's pitched well for them. Yeah. Right. I mean, but Phillies didn't want him any longer, but the Pirates found value in him and he's pitched well there. So I think that you can look at that. I just think it would cost too much for both. I think that you're probably looking at least one of your top end prospects, probably 2 middle tier prospects and maybe a low end prospect. Like it might cost you 4 guys and one of them is going to be a top end guy. And you're like, do I really want to give up a top end guy for 2 relievers? Like that's the thing that, because it's the most volatile position on a roster. I don't know. I think that's where I think they hedge it a little bit and would only go for one. Another question or a couple things that came up since we're taking questions from everybody at this point. Michael Sirkin says, what do they do with Bohm?
This year? I mean,
he's there, right? I mean, he's just
there. I mean, look, I don't know. I mean, big hit this weekend. The numbers are fine. Where I'm starting to land with that is I just can't believe this guy's hitting cleanup for the Phillies right now. It doesn't make sense to me. I don't get it. He's actually knocked in, to his credit, he has knocked in 20 runs over his last 30 games. It's not bad. He's starting to produce runs for them, and that's cool. I just think if he were hitting 6th or 7th in this lineup, I'd feel so much better about it. Even as a guy that's been very critical of Alec Bohm, I would acknowledge that if you had him hitting in the back third of your lineup, or even 6th, I could go for that. Alec Bohm hitting any combination of 3, 4, 5, though, it's just not enough. I don't think it's enough. I actually think that when you start to go, can this team win the World Series? There's no way that the Phillies are going to win the World Series with Alec Bohm hitting 4th. It just isn't going to happen.
Yeah, not going to happen. I'm with you on that, and I think that, I said it earlier this year, and I remember you coming back at me about it, and the reason was because at the time he wasn't hitting at all. But I was saying, well, you can get away with Alec Bohm hitting 8th in your lineup, right? Obviously, he's better than an 8 hitter. But if you I'm with you. If he's hitting 6, I'm fine with Alec Bohm. I'm fine with Alec Bohm if he's batting 6. I'm not okay with Alec Bohm as a cleanup hitter.
And then next year, I don't know. Is he here next year? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. The really interesting question is more about what's going on at second base. Now, obviously, he has a huge home run yesterday, big time hit. Maybe that gets Bryson Stott going. I don't know. But you're in a pure platoon situation there now. And I don't think that the Phillies are going to do anything to upgrade second base in 2025 at the deadline. But you're now looking at a year run where Bryson Stott's been a bottom 10 hitter in baseball. Of guys that are qualified from last July to this July. I mean, by OPS, I think he's 5th worst. It's kind of reaching a fork in the road with him. What is this guy going to be? And how much longer do you ride year after year saying this is our primary option? The defense, I think, can kind of offset some of the offensive shortcomings, but you need more out of him, and you just kind of hope that yesterday gets him going a little bit.
Yeah, and you've said it before, Bob. You could survive with that platoon, A, because of the defense, and B, because the one thing about Stott is he does have a flair for the dramatic. He does have. Yeah,
he's a moments guy.
Yeah, he is a moments guy. So you can kind of.
That's why people don't hate him. That's why Alec Bohm's a better hitter than Bryson Stott, but people are so down on Bohm because he's not a moments guy. Typically, he's a strike 3 on the outside corner, complaining about it, spiking his bat guy.
Yeah,
and Bryson Stott's a guy that gets 3 hits in 2 weeks, and they all come with guys on base, and they're important hits, and that's why the fans here, I think, kind of favor one guy over the other, even though he's not having a nearly as good of a year.
I agree with you. So this was a combo question from 2 different people. David Waitman asked, "Do you think the Phillies go after the Nationals' Kyle Finnegan?" And then Chris Free goes, "And what the hell are the Nats doing a week before they select number 1 overall in the draft? They fire their GM and their coach." Mickey Mouse organization right there. Yeah, kind of an interesting thing what's happening down there. I didn't think that they were both going to go at this point. I would have thought that they would have had through the deadline to see what would have happened, and then a decision could be made. I'm not as big a Kyle Finnegan guy this year as I was last year, but he might be a cheaper option than Bednar.
If we were a national show, would we be anti-Rizzo? Because from afar, I'm that ownership group sucks.
Yeah.
And he built a winner, won a World Series. He made the Soto trade, which is a home run. You feel like they're kind of on their way back. I'm surprised. Martinez, whatever. Okay. Rizzo, though, I'm surprised. You see what he had to say to you yesterday? He sent a text to a reporter. "I navigated that ownership for 20 years.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. But anyway, it's I don't think that they would go after Finnegan at this point. He's a cheaper alternative. Maybe if that's the case, you don't want to pay the prices that other teams want, you settle there. But I'm not certain that Kyle Finnegan's a guy that moves the needle for this bullpen in a lot of ways.
Real quick, Justin Crawford's hitting 343, has multi-hit games in 4 of his last 5. He is now hitting, let's see here, versus left-handed pitching this season. He's 23 for 54, so he's hitting 426 with a 1.086 OPS, hitting 323 against righties. I know that we talked about Justin Crawford quite a bit, and I don't know that we're going to say anything new here, but I guess my question to you would just be, people continually want to upgrade the outfield, upgrade center field, myself included. He's not up here yet. They going to trade him?
Part of me has been saying all along, Bob, that the reason that they haven't called him up is they want his value to remain as high as possible. And when you see what he's doing at AAA and you don't call him up and expose him to major league pitching, maybe that's his greatest value.
I've suggested the same. I also wonder, is it just more simple than that, though? It's just that he doesn't make you better. That he has some defensive shortcomings. Like it's a work in progress. He's probably adequate. But you need pop. And like he doesn't supply pop. And you're getting enough out of Marsh in this moment that what does he really do for you? And if you're going to bring him up here, you need to play him every day. So then that bumps Marsh. You're not going to platoon Castellanos because that would be, oh my God. Could you imagine what that would be like if you platoon Nick Castellanos? Not that I would anyway, but like just from the clubhouse dynamics aspect of it. And then that gives you what left? Like the Kemp, Kepler, Marsh. 2 of those guys are totally redundant with one another. It doesn't. So maybe it's just as simple as like Crawford doesn't help us in this moment. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think they're going to trade him. I do. That's where I think this is headed.
I agree, and I think that this is exactly what they were hoping for, that he would play well at AAA, keep doing what he's doing, and then become the most valuable trade chip, because they're obviously not trading Painter. I don't think they want to trade Aiden Miller. I still think that they look at him as, I know he's struggled at times.
I would like him to be having a better year.
But at the same time, I do think that they still look at that as a guy that is part of the future. Especially considering how uncertain they are about the left side of the infield. I mean, obviously Turner, we already talked about Turner, but is long-term, does he stick at shortstop? Maybe it's better off to have him at second and you bring Miller in short. That's a possibility. If you're talking about replacing Stott down the line. So there's more options with Aiden Miller, I think, and they're obviously not trading Painter. So your best prospect that might be available is Crawford. And I think that they were hoping Mick Abel kind of gets himself right again before the deadline, which is why they sent him down, so that he becomes a tradable commodity. So if you're looking at adding to this team, are you willing to trade Crawford and Abel? Yes, but not Painter and Miller. I think that's kind of where.
Is there any? I wanted to ask you a little bit. There's a lot of buzz about Escobar, and I'm not a prospects guy. I'm not gonna what is it, Rune Escobar? Like everyone's like, this guy's coming. He's an A-ball. He's 20 years old. He's probably not here until best case scenario 27, probably 28. But there's a lot of steam starting to build towards this guy about how he's really their best infield prospect, better than Miller. With that evolution, do you think that he becomes the tradable commodity, or do you think that they might even say look, if Miller's the guy that people want, we like this guy enough that we'll entertain that conversation? He's
certainly on the radar. I got to talk to him a little bit in spring training and talk to some people around the organization when I was down there. I was at the prospects game, and he played third base during the prospects game for them. He's played a lot of second base mostly, but played some third base. You know who he looks like physically, stature-wise? Jose Ramirez.
I'm looking at him right now. He's got a little beef to him.
Yeah, he reminds me physically of Jose. Yeah. I'm saying that. Not saying that's the player he's going to become, but that's who he reminds me of physically. And there's a lot of belief that hit tool is really, really good. And I think that he was an under the radar kind of guy for them. Hey, just keep an eye on him this year. This is going to become one of our better prospects. MLB Pipeline put out their midterm rankings, and he climbed into the top 100, giving the Phillies 6 top 100 guys, which is pretty good. I wonder what that means. Did they want him to not be recognized because they look at him as a future of the organization, or do they want him to be seen? Do they want this attention on him because now he becomes a guy that they could move as well? It's curious. I don't have that answer yet.
It also feels like this farm system, it's not elite, but it's in a better place than it's been in, I think, maybe ever, really. Yeah. I mean, you said it's 6 guys in the top 100 of MLB pipeline. I don't remember that ever being a thing. Like, is it possible? You talk about going all in or mortgaging the future. Did Philly say, like, we're just better at this now? Like, we can find guys, and we feel like for the first time ever, we're better at identifying and developing and getting them to a point where they become tradable commodities that, yeah, like, you know what? Like, let's be a little bit more aggressive because we think that we can replace and replenish. And not that it's a foregone conclusion, but there's a skill to that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, I think that's why you saw Preston Mattingly kind of, rise through the ranks pretty quick. I mean, he was kind of in charge of all that for a while, and then he's now the general manager, and they moved Sam Fold over to the business side of the operation. And I think that was a recognition of what he did with their minor league system and getting their development going in the right direction, because it was terrible. Yeah. And that was like you've talked about it before, where criticize Dave Dombrowski all you want, like probably the biggest change and impact he's made is turning the Phillies into an adult organization.
Yeah.
And that means that stuff, developing minor leaguers and drafting well, and being able to get those players to become valuable, not just for your own organization, but as assets to acquire players. Like, so that all of that is kind of important and often gets overlooked. And Mattingly was the guy who was in charge of that. So good on him, like good on them for doing that. I do think that the Phillies system is in a far better place today than it's been in a long, long time.
Yeah, for sure. I'm a little bit short on time here, so if you want to get to one last thing, we can.
Yes, we have to wrap it up with something that, and where we're going with this, because we talked about it in advance. So on Saturday, Kyle Schwarber hits a home run to left field, and it was caught by that scourge of baseball, Zack Hample. Now, if you don't know who Zack Hample is, just Google the guy, okay? But he's the guy who goes and shows up at major league ballparks and catches foul balls and home run balls, and he's got thousands of them. I think he's got I think the Schwarber one was his 105th home run ball, and he's 47 years old, and he jumps around like he's 5. He takes balls from kids. Like, he's an ass. This guy is a total and complete ass, and I have a real problem with it. I wish Major League Baseball would do something about it, and I know that they probably can't, but I wish he would just go away. There's no person in sports, and I said the word I use is ancillary. So you're talking about people that aren't really involved in sports, but kind of have like a sports connection in some capacity. There's no ancillary person in sports who should go away faster than Zack Hample.
Yeah. I have nothing to add. You said it. He sucks. It just goes beyond like grow up. Like, you watch this guy and you're like, does this guy have friends? Like, does he have anything going on? Like, who likes this guy? Like, seriously. Right. And like, that seems mean, but like the jumping up and down like he's 2 years old, taking balls from kids, and like it's like he gets off to it too. Like,
yeah,
like, you hate me because you ain't me. Like, and it's like, no, buddy, like it's not that at all. Like, and also you're getting home run baseballs. Like, who gives a shit other than like A-Rod's 3,000th hit? Like, I know he got that, and like that's fine. Like, if it's like, I know it's his business and he's built a brand off of it and like it's how he lives his life, but I don't know, man. Weird. Like, when you write his obituary, I don't feel like anybody's going to be like, legendary additive piece, well known and respected for his contributions to the game of baseball. He's a guy that pops up 3 times a year on your Twitter feed and you say this guy's a fucking dweeb.
Yeah, well, and here's the thing that drives me the most crazy, right? He's defended what he does by saying that he's just a baseball fan, loves the sport, loves the game, and this is what he wants to do. And I say that's fraudulent commentary. And here's why it's fraudulent. And he made it most recognizable this weekend in Philadelphia, where he says, I would come here more. This is a paraphrase. I would come to Philadelphia and see games more often. The stadium's beautiful. It's a great atmosphere, et cetera, et cetera. But there's too many people. So what does that mean?
Yeah.
Does that mean you love baseball? Because if you love baseball, you would appreciate a great environment like Citizens Bank Park. But no, he thinks there's too many people because it prevents him from collecting his baseballs. Yeah. So it's a very selfish statement. This is not someone who loves the game. This is not someone who's good for the game. This is someone who's only out for himself and profiting off of the game of baseball in a way that nobody likes. I went to his Instagram, and I was actually more disgusted by the 200 people who comment on his thing saying, great for you, good job, whatever. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, I mean, who are you to cheer this moron on? Like, those people upset me even more. Right?
Maybe he's a great guy in his personal life. I don't know, but I doubt it.
David said he should just go live at Marlins game.
Marlins games,
yeah, that's it. And you're right. Go ahead. Go down there. Nobody would ever pay attention to you.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, all right. Well, that's it for us. That's it. That's it for us. We apologize for not having a show. We should have said this at the top. We apologize for not having a show over the weekend. We were originally going to do Thursday, then we tried to do Friday, and we had conflicts on Friday. It ended up not happening, but we'll be back 2 days a week, and we'll get something going here later this week. The Phillies go out to San Francisco and San Diego for a big road trip right before the All-Star break. I don't like them, Bob, in San Francisco.
No, I feel like it never goes well there. So
it doesn't go well there, and I think that the combination of it doesn't go well there normally. They had to fly cross country and play the very next day. They didn't even get a day off beforehand. And you're going with you're going to get Sanchez in one of the games, but then you're going with Taiwan Walker and Luzardo, who's inconsistent right now. I think this smells of a lose 2 out of 3 to the Giants.
If I could get one out there and guarantee it, I'd probably take it now.
Yeah, I would too. So
if you get through this road trip 3-3, awesome. 2-4, I can go for it. 1-5, yikes.
Yeah, that's ugly, right? But I agree. So I wouldn't expect much in San Francisco. But anyway, we'll be back either Thursday or Friday. We'll figure it out. But later this week, we will definitely have another show. Thanks for tuning in to Phightin Words. Don't forget, you could subscribe to Phightin Words on Apple Music or Apple Podcasts, rather, Spotify, Amazon Music, Pandora, wherever you get your podcast. But it's best if you do it right here on YouTube. Click the thumbs up, ring the bell. Always know when Bob and I go live, you won't ever miss a show. But if you do miss the show or you're listening in the podcast feed and you want to watch it, you can always go to youtube.com/@Phightin Words. For Bob Wankel, I'm Anthony SanFilippo saying thanks for tuning in to our 30th episode of Phightin Words. We're moving. They're getting that number high, Bob. 30 episodes. Have a great week, everybody, and we will talk to you again later.